Hello everybody, Glass Half Dead here, and today we are continuing with my obsession into what is Warcry and the Age of Sigmar core factions. Why? Because there is nothing we can do about the Warcry warbands of Chaos because they're not released yet. All of these models are released, therefore I'm very excited to think about them, talk about them, and let's be honest, probably buy something. So, let's start with Stormcast Eternals because that is where Games Workshop starts. I've got them all in order along the top. Don't worry, we're fine. What we are looking at today is Games Workshop has finally released data cards, their fighter cards, with a teaser of one rule for each single faction, which will be this, plus the abilities card, plus the total fighter types. I would also add that for every single faction, basically every troop type that we already know could be used from earlier videos, you can take that troop, the alternate build from that box, if there is an alternate build, any potential weapon builds in there, and the sergeant model, or the leader model, whatever they're called in AOS, for every variation within that box. So I'm not going to spend too long saying, oh look, you could take a Raptor Prime with long strike crossbow, not just a Vanguard Raptor with long strike crossbow, because we get it. First thing to notice here is all of their abilities require a specialism, and the single card that we have been shown, which is a Vanguard Hunter, does not have a specialism. Therefore, a Vanguard Hunter can only use this very first ability, which is Tireless Hunters. Add half the value of this ability, rounding up to the move characteristic of this fighter for the next move action they make this activation. Potentially, on a double, that could make you pretty damn fast. You could give you +3 to one of your moves for a double. Let's keep going, because I have a theory. On a double, you get Warning Cry from this symbol, and I do not know the rune marks well enough to know what that is, but having read it, I believe that's going to be your Ether Wing. It is Warning Cry. Pick a visible enemy fighter within 6 inches of this fighter. Until the end of the battle round, you can reroll 1 dice during attack actions made by friendly fighters that target that fighter. So it's anyone that... I'm pretty sure that's a Tau ability. Anybody that shoots or attacks somebody within 6 inches of the Ether Wing rerolls 1 missed dice. And then we get a final double, Righteous Aura. Until the end of the battle round, add 1 to the toughness characteristic of friendly fighters while they are within 6 inches of this fighter. That seems to be... Is that our leader ability? I'd have to go back and check the rune marks, but that looks suspiciously like the leader ability, which makes sense, I suppose. That's what a leader might do. Therefore, that would be on any of the prime models, I would guess. And now we look at their stats. So for 165 points, we get 20 wounds, toughness 5, movement 4, super slow. That is super slow, okay. Their crossbows on the Vanguard Hunters are range 8. That's fine. We haven't seen anything longer than an 8 yet. I would assume that the long strike crossbows would be, but let's see. 3 attacks, strength 4, 1-4. Ooh, okay. So if you're just getting hits, you're effectively useless. You are wanting those... You're fishing for 6s on that weapon, I'd say. Then your regular attack is obviously range 1 with 4 attacks, strength 4, 2-4. So a slightly more normal attack there. As Games Workshop did kind of say, they are a bit of an all-rounder. They can do everything. They're incredibly slow, which I guess makes sense because they are very heavily armoured. They're tough. They've got decent wounds. They're expensive for just a regular, normal guy. Daughters of Cain. So exactly as said, I'm not going to go over the different options here. However, for a double, we get Bathed in Blood. A fighter could use this ability only if they are within 3 inches of a visible enemy fighter with 1 or more damage points allocated to them. Until the end of this fighter's activation, add 1 to the attacks and strength characteristics of attack actions made by this fighter. Double Turned Crystal. Pick a visible enemy fighter within 6 inches of this fighter and roll 2 dice. For each roll of a 4 to 5, allocate 1 damage point to that fighter. For each roll of a 6, allocate a number of damage points to that fighter equal to the value of this ability. This mark, I'm going to guess, is going to be on the Blood Sisters there. Or maybe just the Gore guy, I don't know, but presumably both, as you are effectively using the Medusa ability. Then we get Heart Seekers. If the next attack action made by this fighter, this activation scores 1 or more critical hits, and the target fighter is more than 3 inches away, allocate a number of damage points to that fighter equal to the value of this ability. So for 245 points, that's a lot of points. Let's just quickly... Is this the Gore guy? Yes. So this is a leader model here. That's the little leader mark there. And sure enough, that mark there is, as I just said, here for the turned crystal. So what are you doing? 7, you're pretty fast. 30, you're very healthy. I'll give you that. Only a T4. Your weapon range is 2 inches. 6 attacks. That's good. That's good. Strength 4, 2-4. I think the 6 attacks with 30 wounds. I mean that's 7-inch move. I think that stands up pretty well against an ogre who was obviously for the Warcry Warbands roughly in the same points level with the 30 wounds there. Idoneth Deepkin. Low Tide. A fighter can use this ability only if it is the first battle round. This fighter can make a bonus move action a number of inches equal to the value of this ability. Sweeping Blow. Roll 1 dice for each visible enemy fighter within 2 inches of this fighter. On a 5, allocate 1 damage point to the fighter being rolled for. On a 6, allocate a number of damage points to the fighter being rolled for equal to the value of this ability. That is quite standard now. We are seeing that wording a lot. That on a 6, the value of the double or the triple or the quad is the critical hit of the ability effectively. Otherwise, you're doing 1 damage per dice. Then the final double is Stormfire. Until the end of this fighter's activation, add 1 to the attack's characteristics of attack actions made by this fighter that target an enemy fighter more than 3 inches away. And we see the big boy eel. I don't know which one this is. This is the Morsar? Yeah, the Morsar. This is actually the leader Morsar, isn't it? Ooh, interesting. So, for 265 points, you are getting 35 wounds, movement 10, range 2 weapon, 3 attacks, strength 4, 2-5. We haven't seen many range 2 weapons yet, and I'm not sure how useful they're going to be. Because of the alternating activations, potentially, my instant thought is, oh, so you could be out of range when you attack. Well, okay, no, I suppose it is still a good thing, because on the next activation, the enemy fighter is still going to have to make a move into within range of their 1-inch weapon, then attack. So you're effectively robbing them of an attack if you have good positioning. 3 attacks, 2s and 5s doesn't seem amazing, but they're so fast. 35 wounds. They're doing just fine. However, of course, 265 points, you can only take 3, which is cool to know. Although that is the leader variant. I wouldn't be at all surprised if he's 265 and the others are down at a points cost where you could just fit 4. So, him plus 3 into a list. And now the Nighthaunt of a faction I know almost nothing about. The Extoller of Shyish here comes as one of the easy build options for the Glaive Wraith Stalkers in the easy to build kits. Double Aura of Dread. There's a lot of words here. Pick a visible enemy fighter within a number of inches of this fighter equal to the value of this ability. Until the end of the battle round, subtract 1 from the strength characteristic to a minimum of 1 of attack actions made by that fighter. A fighter can only be targeted once per battle round by this ability. Okay, that's pretty scary actually. I mean, don't get me wrong. So in Warcry's battle system, you are always wounding on a 5. So you could never be taken below that. You're always wounding on a 5, and you are always critting on a 6. But Soulmark Prey. Pick a visible enemy fighter within 3 inches of this fighter with 1 or more damage points allocated to them. Till the end of the battle round, add 1 to the strength characteristic of attack actions made by friendly fighters that target that fighter. A fighter cannot be picked more than. So it's kind of the double whammy there. Lower theirs and then increase yours. I don't know if you'd really want to use both of those, but anyway. Triple Frightful Touch. Until the end of this fighter's activation, count each hit from attack actions made by them as a critical hit instead. Oh, that's potentially very nice. Certainly, I know that in every other faction so far, the crit is wildly better than the normal hit. So let's take a look. Okay, this is he the Extoller? He's a Dread Warden. So he's a leader model. 16 wounds, okay. Movement 5, T4. So they're not particularly fast. They do have flight, we see there. I believe that's the flight keyword, rune mark anyway. Range 1, 3 attacks, strength 3, 2, 4. So obviously, with only a strength of 3 on one of your leader models, we are seeing why they have the Aura of Dread and the Soul-Marked Prey as abilities. 150 points. He seems nothing to write home about for me there. Legions of Nagash. Shambling Horde. It's a double. No rune mark. A fighter can use this ability only if they are within 6 inches of a visible friendly fighter with the leader rune mark. Okay. This fighter can make a bonus move action a number of inches equal to half the value of this ability rounding up. So that's kind of cool, as it's a bonus move, so obviously it's not using up one of your actions, so you can still attack twice or move twice again in the turn. Chosen Champion. A fighter can only use this ability if they are within 6 inches of a visible friendly fighter with the leader rune mark. Add 1 to the attack and strength characteristic of attack actions made by the fighter this activation. And finally, Cursed Weapon. Until the end of the fighter's activation, add 1 to the damage points allocated by hits and critical hits from attack actions made by this fighter that have a range characteristic of 3 or less. It's pretty nice for a double. And our card is the Necromancer. Movement 4, T4. So he's slow. 25 wounds, pretty good though. 25 wounds, can't argue with that. And we finally see our first magical blast. Oh, that's cool. So it is a 3 to 7. It's also our first minimum range ability we see there. He gets 2 attacks, strength 3, 3, 6. That's nice. Although only 2 attacks. Would it be nice if he had more? But that's pretty good, I think. And then his regular club is range 2. I'm just very quickly trying to figure out if you could ever position yourself so that you are within that 2 to 3 inch gap, but you can't, sadly. You'll always be within range of one of the two. 3 attacks, strength 4, 1, 4. So I guess the downside to his magical blast is it's only a strength of 3. But as said, in Warcry you're always getting the wound through on a 5, critting on 6. Which brings us to the Flesh Eater Chords. So on a double we get Feeding Frenzy. A fighter can only use this ability if an enemy fighter has been taken down by an attack action made by them this activation. Remove a number of damage points from this fighter equal to the value of this ability. Instant thought is that this reminds me of the ability from Warcraft 3 with a ghoul, where you can tell them to eat the corpse of the thing you've just killed, and they gain health. Anyway, double Skewering Strike. Add 1 to the strength characteristic of the next attack action made by this fighter this activation that has a range characteristic of 3 or less. So +1 strength. In addition, if that attack action scores a critical hit until the end of the battle round, the target fighter cannot make move actions or disengage actions. So if you get a crit, the enemy cannot run away. On a double, you get Chosen of the King. A fight, that's a fun little nod. Again, very thematically named ability, Chosen of the King, implying that they have a king and are not just crazy, disgusting monsters. A fighter can use this ability only if they are within 6 inches of a visible friendly fighter with the leader rune mark. Till the end of the fighter's activation, add 2 to the attack's characteristic of attack actions made by this fighter that have a range characteristic of 3 or less. Add 2 to the attack characteristic, so roll 2 more dice. Ooh, okay, so 190 points for, which one's this? This is the Crypt Horror. Movement 6, pretty good. Only a T4, but 30 wounds for 190 points. Range 1, 4 attacks, strength 4, 2, 4. His attack stat line seems kind of average, especially considering how many points he costs there. Also noticing that for a big, expensive model, he's only T4 strength 4. He is faster, and for the Gloom Spike Gits, we have double Backstabbing Mob. A fighter can use this ability only if there is a visible enemy fighter within 1 inch of them. Okay, till the end of this fighter's activation, add 1 to the attack and strength characteristics of attack actions made by the fighter that have a range characteristic of 3 or less. I'll be honest, I thought that ability was going to go differently there, because it's called Backstabbing Mob, and you have to be within 1 inch of a friendly fighter. I thought it was going to be like, do a negative to the guy next to you, and then you get a positive, but it wasn't. Double Barb Net. So this is obviously going to be for the Stabber with Barb Net. Pick a visible enemy fighter within 3 inches of this fighter and roll a dice on a 3+. To the end of the battle round, the fighter cannot make move actions or disengage actions. Triple Boing Boing Boing. Something tells me this is going to be involved with the squigs. Just a guess. Till the end of this fighter's activation, the next time this fighter finishes a move action within 1 inch of an enemy fighter, pick a visible enemy fighter within 1 inch of this fighter. That seems like awkward phrasing, but okay. Allocate a number of damage points to that fighter's equal to the value of this ability. And then we go over to the Squig. Which was this? This is the Squig Hopper. Just a regular Squig Hopper. 200 points on the nose. 16 health is pretty low for 200 points. Movement 10 is pretty high. T4. What does this guy do? So, 1 inch range, 4 attacks, strength 5, 2-4. It's really the 16 wounds that is obviously letting him down there. However, that's Gobbos for you, isn't it? You can't really... I mean, that's what you expect to get when you play the Gobbos. Now we come to the Ironjawz, a faction that I was particularly interested in seeing, but was scared that they only had 2 options. Obviously, that's not an issue now, as we've seen. And also, they were defined in the GW article as simple to play. On a double, you get charge. A fighter could use this ability only if there is a visible enemy fighter within 6 inches of them. This fighter makes a bonus move action and must finish closer to the closest visible enemy fighter than they were at the start of that move action. That's pretty cool, actually. I like that. You are able, therefore, to use your double as a way to move into close combat and then just wreck them. With a shield bash, after this fighter's next move action, this activation, pick a visible enemy fighter within 1 inch of this fighter and roll a dice. On a 4 to 5, allocate 1 damage point to that fighter. On a 6, allocate the value of this ability. Shield bash, so obviously that's going to go on your Ardboy with a shield, as I think that's the only guy that has a shield. Yep. Double, duff up the big thing. Until the end of this fighter's activation, add 2 to the attack and strength characteristic of attack actions made by this fighter that have a range characteristic of 3 or less and that target an enemy fighter with a wounds characteristic of 15 or more. That's pretty nice. So it's giving you plus 2 attacks, plus 2 strength. So as we can kind of assume that these guys have what? They're going to be strength 5, right? I mean, they're orcs. They're going to be strength 5. So it's making you strength 7. Are we ever going to get anything that's over a T6? Don't think so. So this means you're wounding everything on 3s. And obviously crits are always a 6. And we get to see the Gore Chopper Brute, which is this guy here, Brute with Gore Chopper. Whoa, okay. Movement 3. That's ouch. That is ouch. T5. 25 wounds. At 200 points. Range 1. 3 attacks. Strength 5. 3, 6. You know what? That movement 3 scares me. I'm going to be honest. That movement 3 scares me. Not because it's like, oh, he's going to take ages to get into combat. Just because that I've played slow armies before in Kill Team, for example, Necrons in core with their base 5 move. It's kind of boring. Like, oh, 3 inches. Okay. That's quite concerning for me. If the entire faction there is 3 inches, I think they'd be a no play for me. Don't get me wrong, that is very thematic for orcs. I know that in Age of Sigmar, orcs are slow, so it's not like this should be unexpected, but 3 does seem exceptionally low. And finally, we come to Bone Splitters. Again, one of the boxes that is almost a must-buy, because why wouldn't you? Now, interestingly, they have the ability to take a totem. It's going to be interesting to see what that does. I suspect it will do something involving the abilities here. So we get a charge on the first double. A fighter can use this ability only if there is a visible enemy fighter within 6 inches. You make a bonus move and must finish closer to them. That is exactly what the Ironjawz got there. I guess they're both orcs, it makes sense. Tooth Shiv. Pick a visible enemy fighter within 1 inch of this fighter and roll a dice. On a 3 to 4, allocate 1 damage. On a 5 to 6, allocate a number of damage points to that fighter equal to the value of this ability. So that's actually... most of these abilities have been on a 6 allocated number of damage points equal to the value of this ability. This is 5 to 6, so that actually makes this pretty good. You have a 32% chance of getting a crit on this. So if your double is a 6, this could be really strong. And then finally, double Beast Spirit Juju. Until the end of this battle round, add 1 to the toughness characteristic of friendly fighters while they're within 6 inches of this fighter. Now, that is the sorcerer symbol. So who's he? Morboy Boss. Auric with Savage Sticker. That must be the Bone Totem, mustn't it? Interesting. Okay. So here we see the Arrow Boy. That's quite cool that we get to see what they do. Oh. 3 to 15. So, movement of 4. Toughness of 3. Interesting. Maybe that's how all of the orcs here, the Savage Oryx, the Bone Splitters are going to be only T3 because they're naked effectively. But they're still orcs. Seems weird. Anyway, 15 wounds, 90 points. Your arrow is 3 to 15 inches. You get 2 shots, 2 attacks. With a strength of 3, you're doing 1-3. That to me reads very much like you are almost always going to be wounding on the 5s. So yeah, these guys aren't. Well, you know you can spam anything, but I'm not sure. It's interesting. 15-inch range is really strong though. The Vanguard Hunters at the beginning only had an 8-inch range, and then their regular attack is 1 inch, 3 attacks, straight 3, 1-2, and that's it. Well, that was pretty fun. What are my takeaways? I'm just generally excited, to be honest. I've got to admit, I am one of those people that likes the small model count armies, and so I may go and buy some of the big things. So that was the Medusae for the Daughters of Cain. That was the Eel Boys for Ideth Deepkin, and possibly the Flayers, the Crypt Horror people for the what were they, guys? Flesh Eater Courts. The other big thing we saw, of course, was the Brute. But I kind of said in that little bit why that wasn't sparking joy, if you will. 3-inch move. I don't want to have a 3-inch move. That sounds really crap. So anyway, this has been Glass Half Dead. Still intensely excited for Warcry. Obviously, I wish I wasn't because it saved me so much money. But whatever. I hope you've had a great day. What are your thoughts? Has this changed your thoughts for any of the warbands, or are you still just on board on the train, and these are all pretty much what you expected? I think these are pretty much all what I expected after having seen the Games Workshop kind of run down without any stats and cards. So yeah, I'm happy with everything here. I'm still excited at getting new teasers, etc., etc. Anyway, hope you've had a great day. Continue to have a great day. Glass off, saying goodbye.